to get dangerous. It's about to get dangerous. It's about to get dangerous. Somebody might die tonight. We're living the party life. Somebody might die tonight. We're living the party life. Somebody might die tonight. We're living the party life. Somebody might die tonight. We're living the party life.
Yeah.
It's about to get dangerous.
Oh my God, it is. It's about to get dangerous. That's the great band Heat Club out of England. Thank you guys for letting me use your music. The song "Dangerous." I got some comments on a couple episodes, and they were telling me you need more guests. Stop doing the podcast by yourself. I guess I'm not that great at riffing. I don't know, or I'm better with someone. So I got a guest. I'm shocked this guy's even on the podcast. I feel honored. He was the first comedian to get a 30-minute special on Comedy Central. He had his own sitcom, Mr. Rhodes. He was I guess, the host. Well, he was the host of the Kevin Masters show in Amsterdam. This guy has multiple albums: Hot Sweet Ass, Live in Paris, Colossus of Me, and his newest one, Around the World. Let's give it up for Tom Rhodes. Yeah.
What's
Hey,
up, Alex?
Tom. Nice to meet you.
You too, brother. It was your tenacity and persistence is why I'm a guest on your show today.
Well, you got to have that in comedy. You really just got to have it in life, but I've learned it in comedy where you really got to go after. You can't just wait for someone to reach out to you. So, love the books in the background. You definitely read more than me. Have you read all these?
About half of them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a very large library.
And you could just sit down and concentrate and just read. You don't get distracted.
Yeah, no, I've always been a reader and I love books and traveling as a comedian, you got tons of time to read. Sitting
Yeah.
on sitting on airplanes. I grew up in a house full of chaos, so I can focus in crowded places and read.
That's the best place to read is an airplane. And it was the last time I read was in January when I went to Mexico. I read a whole book and I just struggle. I got ADD, I got ADHD, I got addictions. It's hard for me to sit down and read, but I'm going to start trying more.
Okay.
In honor of you, Tom.
What was the last book you read?
Born Standing Up by Steve Martin.
Good book. I've read it.
I'm 5.5 years into comedy, so I'm still looking for tips. I'm trying to read inspirational things to keep going to doing these bar shows and shows you get paid $40 or 3 hours away, and
Okay.
you got to keep that motivation,
You're looking for daily motivation?
Yes.
Okay, you should get The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday.
Okay, Daily Stoic. Okay.
Um, talk for a second. I'll be right back.
Okay. This is me talking for a sec. I excited about the book that Tom's going to show. I know a little bit about the Stoic way. I've checked out Marcus Aurelius.
Oh yeah, good. Okay, so he and Seneca are the top dogs of Stoicism.
Yeah.
So this is the Daily Stoic. I got 3 daily readers. This is a good one.
Okay.
Hold. 1. October 31st. It's a good one. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. The human being is born with an inclination toward virtue. Musonius Rufus said this. And then Ryan Holiday says this: the notion of original sin has weighed down humankind for centuries. In reality, we're made to help each other and be good to each other. We wouldn't have survived as a species otherwise. There is hardly an idea in Stoic philosophy that wouldn't be immediately agreeable to a child or that doesn't jibe with common sense. The ideas within it go to the core of who we are and what we know to be true. The only things they conflict with are the various inventions of society, which usually serve some selfish interest more than they benefit the common good. You were born good. All of us have been made by nature, Rufus said, so that we can live free from error and nobly. Not that one can and another can't, but all. You were born with an attraction to virtue and self mastery. If you've gotten far from that, it's not out of some inborn corruption, but from nurturing of the wrong things and the wrong ideas. As Seneca pointed out, philosophy is a tool to strip it all away, to get back to our true nature.
I like that. I like that. You know, I like books more that aren't, and there's nothing wrong with this, religious based. Because to me, they're very similar in talking about being good, being you, being the true you, which is a good person. And I like that. I like that a lot.
It is possible to be a good person without organized religion being a,
Right.
and I'm from a very Christian family and um, grew up in a pretty hardcore Christian society. And I think he touches on it on that thing, the idea of we're all born sinful, that we're
Mm.
flawed somehow. I think we're born beautiful, perfect geniuses.
Yeah, I believe that too. I believe the outside world is
Yeah,
what changed. You know? So you said you grew up with religion. I did too. And did you get to an age like maybe your 20s where you're like, hang on a second? Like let me think for myself and figure this out. I kind of got sick of people telling me believe this, you know?
well, I think there's good things in all religions. You know, I've enjoyed diving into all of it. Different religious texts and stuff. But organized religion can the righteousness that a lot of people have and the judgmentalism can be a turnoff for a few.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that was the turnoff for me, you know. I felt guilty about who I was um because I didn't live up to the standards that the people around me, family, were living up to, even though they had issues too, but they didn't talk about it with me, you know?
Yeah. Well, that
So,
brings us to Hafiz. He was a
okay.
Sufi mystic poet.
Okay.
December 31st. I haven't read this one. An old musician. How do those who know of God meet and part, like the way an old musician will greet his beloved instrument and will take special care, the way a great artist always does, to enhance the final note of each performance.
Bam. I love it.
Then there's this other daily reader. It's called The Golden Present. I don't know if
Okay.
I'm bothered with that, but those are pretty good.
So, I mean, do you read these every day?
I try to when I'm traveling. I don't bring them, but I'm always reading something. I love books. I
It does
love I love
does
mostly nonfiction and biographies and things like that.
does reading keep you from like dangerous thoughts, trouble?
No,
No.
no, but I do think as a comedian, your brain is a computer, and you need to put input in to get output, and it's just a good mental exercise.
Yeah, a lot of
It's also it's good for having a good vocabulary as well.
yeah, a lot of your comedy, it is like, hey, I heard about this. You know, I could tell you read a lot. Um, Even in your early stuff with the long hair when you were a stoner, um, it was always something. Hey, did you hear about this? I learned this, and I do like that in comedy because the audience is learning something, but they're also having fun.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a good combination.
My favorite comedy has always been comedy that you can learn something from.
Yeah.
And I don't think comedy changes people's opinions so much as you always hear people say. I think it entrenches some people when
Hmm.
um, they hear a conflicting opinion. But yeah, I think knowledge is cool. Knowledge is sexy, and it's good to snap off. Um, you know, uh, it's good to talk about things other than fucking or dating or relationships.
Now, okay, that's perfect because I was gonna ask you when you were early into comedy, did you talk more about fucking and hitting the bong and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and I think most comics start out dirty
Hmm.
because it's not everybody, but dirty stuff gets laughs. It's easy,
Yeah,
and I work with young comics all the time, and they'll kill, you know, a lot of um, young comedians now talk about. I mean, it's just I think it's natural, but I think it's important to evolve as a human being as you evolve as a comedian. So who wants to hear an old guy talking about who he's fucking?
yeah, right. I'm sure there's some people, but but yeah, yeah. I'm pretty dirty comedian. I just feel like it comes more natural to me, but I know I'm still early in this and I would like to expand. I have some stuff from my past I haven't talked about on stage that I eventually would like to get to. I like I like that you've kind of gone from setup punchline to stories. And I was going to ask you about that. What's the difference between stand-up comedy and storytelling?
I think, and I love one-liners, I love jokes, and I still write them. But what, from my experience, stories have an impact on people greater than jokes. And stories of your real true life stay with people longer than the best written joke. So I think there's a power to it. I mean, and you've often heard it said that the most valuable gift that we have to give is our story. So um, I think there's some truth to that.
So, I mean, do people shit on comedians that just do storytelling? I mean, should you not care? I mean, do you look when you tell a story, are you looking to add a couple punchlines to make it somewhat stand-up-ish?
Well, not I mean, and it's a big risk to go and do a story, especially if you're doing like a 15-minute set in Los Angeles and people before you have just destroyed the place. If you're going to go into like a 3-minute story or a 5-minute story, you have the risk of people zoning out,
Yeah,
and you could see a couple sentences in, people getting up to go to the bathroom sometime.
right.
But you know,
So is
they
that where like adding a joke
cocaine
or
is pretty prevalent in society again, so maybe they're just going to hit the bindle. I don't know.
well, is that like adding a joke within the story helps people stay focused in your experience?
I mean, you better be funny if you're going to tell a story.
Right,
But I have a story that I've been telling, and the payoff, the funny part isn't until the end, but it's a 2-minute, three
setup.
story to get to the funny part. You got
Yeah,
to pull back the tension and release it with the. I'm talking about a very unpleasant thing that happened to me. I won't go into it here.
yeah.
And then the funny part is at the end. But
Well, I've seen some of your material where you do that, and I don't know if that's a experience thing because especially early on, you're like nervous when there's silence. You know what I mean? You're like, they hate
yeah,
me. They fucking, I gotta say something funny, you know?
yeah, but that's you gotta that's a part of evolving as a comedian. You gotta learn to be comfortable in the silences and learn to own your silences. Um, my ex-wife used to always remind me, she's still my best friend, but she would always remind me before I went on stage, own your silences.
I like that. I really like that.
You
Do
gotta
you
you
have
gotta
you
learn to be you gotta be learn to be a gunfighter. You know, when
have
you're
you
young, you panic.
right.
And you start if a couple lines don't get a laugh, you start rushing your material, your sentences because you're trying to get to that next laugh, and then that screws everything up.
Right. Yeah, that's if you watch my set, that's what it is right there. But how long that take you to get comfortable on stage?
25 years, 20.
Okay, I got 20
No,
more
I
to
mean
go.
maybe not that long, but I'd say like 15, 20, definitely.
So as you went on, your setups or your tension grew? Is that kind of how it went?
I think it's always exciting when you can see when I think that's the most important part of a comedian's evolution is because I was terrified the first 5 years that I did stand up. But I kept fighting through the fear because I knew it's what I loved and what I wanted to do. But the moment you get confident on stage, and you can see when it happens to a comedian, and like then nothing can throw them. Like a fight could break out, a waitress could drop a tray of drinks, but also it doesn't matter if you start talking free form or screw things up or whatever. You got the confidence to stand there and own it, even if um it appears that it isn't going well for a moment.
Yeah, I sometimes my material that I up with on stage is better than my written shit, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like hard to prepare because you're like, well, I wrote some of this stuff down, but then I've done sets where I just like improvised and that was way better than anything I've written. So, but then I've improvised and it didn't work out. So, I guess it's a lot of trial and error, you know? But yeah, I love it.
Humiliation too.
Yeah, yeah, being humble. I definitely have been too cocky and gone up there and just ate a bag of dicks, you know. So, but that's good to know, huh?
It happens to the best of us.
Has there any ever been a time, and I'm sure there has, where you had that long setup and then the payoff didn't pay off,
Yeah.
and you just move on,
Yeah, I mean
or do you address it?
you address it. You know that I've had a bunch of comedian friends of mine tell me the shit I say between the jokes is funnier than the jokes sometimes, and that's you self-deprecating or throwaway lines. Definitely, if something doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay.
But on a story, it's like, well, I'm so glad I opened up. To
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I actually the story about the guy trying to kill you while you were scuba diving,
yeah.
that has stuck with me. So like you said, stories do stick, and I heard that a couple years ago and I still have thought about that, you know?
True story.
Yeah, that's the great. Well, that album, your most recent one, came out in 2019. It's all stories from you traveling.
It's all mostly jokes and stories. I recorded it in 24 countries around the world, 24 cities. It starts in Paris, ends in Jerusalem, and it's all mostly jokes and stories about each place because I've done the international circuits for over 20 years. So I have a lot of material that I've developed in these different places, and I love knowledge, and I have experiences in these places, like almost drowning in Thailand. And then there were a lot of new places where I had to write, um, like, you know,
Malaysia?
no, I had done Kuala Lumpur quite a few times. I really love Malaysia. But like Oslo and Jerusalem, and there was a few new places on that album. It was supposed to be 25 cities, but in Tokyo, my recorder fell off the ledge.
Oh God,
It
trying to
was
kill itself.
yeah, so I lost the set.
And what happened in that set? Any Is there anything that you wanted to put on the album that didn't make it? That
Yeah, Tokyo is really Japanese society is really interesting. If you commit suicide in Japan by jumping in front of a train, your family is sent a bill for disruption of service.
that's crazy.
There's some ice cold shit about Japanese society, and
Yeah.
people on death row are never told the day they're going to be executed. So every day you wake up, it could be that day, or it could be 10 years from then.
Wow.
Yeah,
Kind of like that better.
kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I mean, that's kind of how you should live your life too,
Yeah, well, I mean, staying off death row is probably how you should live.
But you could die any moment.
Yeah.
Gotta live your life. Help those people in jail. Is there a story that didn't make the album that you could tell me?
No, everything's. I'm working on the next hour. So
What is the next hour? Is it another international?
I don't know. I'm just trying to develop, stuff about my life, and um, you know, where I am in the world right now.
Have you thought about, or maybe you have, done a one-man show?
I have, and I have been thinking about um renting out some small theaters and working on an hour show. Like my I have a pretty pro humanity message, which isn't very trendy at the moment. Everyone seems to be picking sides and um, choosing ugliness and hatred, but I'm pretty in love with the human species, and uh, I've got a lot of valuable knowledge and information to share. So, and my experiences of traveling around the world. So, um, yeah, it's something I'm
Don't
trying
you,
to do.
don't you think that's something we need?
Yeah,
I think that's one thing I do like about comedians is most of them show the bullshit on both sides, you know? And I think in society right now, we don't look at both sides of things. We just, like you said, pick a side and go with that. And also we go with whatever everyone else is thinking, you know? Hang on, let me close this door for a second. They're doing construction outside.
where you at in Sacramento?
I'm in San Leandro, California, right by the Oakland airport.
There used to be Tommy T's there
It's
years
in
ago,
Pleasanton, where I'm actually from.
but they at one time had
Uh,
three in the Bay Area,
uh-huh.
and one of them was in San Leandro.
And you played it.
Many times in the early '90s when I moved to San Francisco, and I yeah, had
Was
a.
it an urban club then?
It was a little on the urban side. It was a little
Yeah.
rough. But I remember I had a waitress showed me um her groceries.
There you go. You can't beat that.
I was very much in love and living with a woman in San Francisco, and I thought it was a pretty bold. Yeah, I know San Leandro.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually at
Heard of
work.
it, showed it to me.
I'm actually at work right now, but
No kidding.
I'm the manager, so I could do pretty much whatever.
What's the job?
I work for an environmental company that supplies equipment to engineers that are testing soil, water, air. A lot of times, they'll build a car wash on a location that used to be a gas station. So they
Cool.
want to make sure there's no. My story is boring, Tom.
No, but that's really expensive to test the soil of a former gas station, right?
Yeah, one of our biggest clients too is Chevron. So there's a lot of money in it. I didn't even know. What's this?
Can you test this soil for me?
I'm sure we could. What is it?
It's from Monument Valley and on the Navajo Nation. Just beautiful red dirt.
Oh yeah, that'll stain your clothes.
Yes.
They got that in Hawaii, all that red dirt. I remember just screwing up a really nice pair of Air Jordans I had.
This is like the show and tell podcast. I keep stepping out and coming back with things to show you.
No, hey, you know what? This is cool. I'm getting something from this. That's like we talked about comedy where you learn something. You're definitely teaching me some stuff here. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, how long did you live in the Bay?
7 years.
Okay. And what made you move? Just to be closer to Hollywood?
I was offered a sitcom on NBC, so I moved.
Oh, Mr. Rhodes.
Yeah.
So you were offered that even though you lived up here?
Yeah. Well, I had done I was the face of Comedy Central for a couple of years, so I think people knew me. And
Hmm.
then I did the Montreal Just for Laughs Festival, and I was discovered and offered a development deal and moved to LA and filmed the pilot. People loved it, and I did one full season.
And how was that experience? Was that cool?
It was frustrating. I mean, it was nice living on top of the Hollywood Hills, making a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
but I had no control over the writing, and
Yeah.
they, um, you know, I played a school teacher, and they gave all the funny lines to everyone around me, and I
Yeah.
was just reacting, and I gave nice advice to the kids. It would have. I'm glad that the show didn't last, and it took me many years to realize that, because had that show been a success, I would have stayed living in the Hollywood Hills, and I would have crawled up in my own asshole. And
Right, right.
um, who knows? Maybe I would have ended up like Matthew Perry, just like a guy with addiction problems. And um, you're making that much money, and uh,
It's hard to be humble. It's hard to be humble, you
well,
know?
it's hard, man. And a lot of the people that I thought were my closest people in my life, when I had that sitcom, I thought, oh man, these people will be in my life forever. When the show ended, they weren't. And a lot of people turned out to be phony crustaceans.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think back on that and think, had the show been a success, a lot of these phony people would have stayed in my life who didn't really care about me. So, I don't know what, Matthew Perry's life was like. I mean, I do know what addiction is like. I find it hard to relate to people who haven't had addiction issues. Um, because I think that's a real victory to kick shit and find self-love and you know uh feel your feelings without numbing them, and navigate your life in a better way. But I think it took me 25 years to realize that my show not lasting more than a year was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I looked at the money as I got as my NBC artist grant, and I moved back to New York City, where I had lived when I was 20 years old, like a dog. And I got to just focus on stand up. And then with that money, I started taking systematic trips to London. My friend Rich Hall had done very well there, and uh, he thought I would do well there. So um, I got in with London, and I started playing London regularly, and that led to gigs around Europe and gigs around the world. So London was the key to the international circuits for me. And it was that money that I had made that I invested in myself. that brought me to that level. And then I ended up, falling in love with a woman in Amsterdam, and I moved to Amsterdam. The relationship didn't work out, but then I got that late night talk show.
Got
I
to
had
see got to see Steve-O's dick, on TV.
I had this magical life in Amsterdam, and I'm actually going back in a couple of weeks to go do shows in Holland and Belgium and France and Paris. And that all that probably never would have happened if I would have just become like a donkey working endlessly on a show I wasn't happy with.
Well, and I've heard a lot of those shows, you like you said, you don't have say and you have unfunny people telling you what is funny, And the beauty of what you said is I really relate because I went through some traumatic drug use and criminal activity, and I was really ashamed of it. And then I had a child, and he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And if I didn't drop out of college, if I didn't do heroin and stole from people and did all this horrible shit, I would have never met the woman that gave me my child.
Right.
You know? And I know it's kind of corny saying shit happens for a reason, but I really believe it.
All right, I do too.
And that's great. That's really cool to hear that. The great thing about now, it seems like you could do your own fucking sitcom
Yeah.
and put it up on YouTube. I mean, you can really do your own thing. It kind of gives me hope that I don't have to move to LA or move to New York. That if I become successful enough online, I could fucking stay right here in San Leandro.
You can do it all right there. Yeah. Oh, and I just want to say that
Yeah.
for the first, well, no, it wasn't, but for I'd say a good 3 to 5 years for my podcast, I used that exact same microphone.
Oh, the Yeti?
Yeti. Yeah.
Okay. I like it. I like
I
it.
like it. It looks great. You
Yeah.
feel like you're making like an old timey radio show. That's what I always felt. I like the dome on the top of it.
Yeah, I mean, it really picks up my beautiful voice, so I like it. So you moved to London, or were
No,
you
I
just
moved
going
to
back and
Amsterdam.
forth? Oh, Amsterdam.
Yeah.
You like playing Europe more than here? Is it similar?
I like playing everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think to be a great comedian, you got to be able to make everybody laugh. So like when I lived in San Francisco, there was a black club in Oakland I used to go to. Clem Daniels End Zone used
Oh,
to
wow.
you should go check that club out. They used to do a comedy night there once a week. And it was a pretty rough
Yeah.
audience, but they were the best. I loved it.
I
And
do I do a lot of Oakland shows now, but it's so gentrified that it's not really rough.
yeah, I mean, like, playing in front of gay audiences or all Latino or, there's so many like specialty black shows that are like to kill on those kind of shows is the best feeling in the world. And then I have that same feeling like when you go to different countries, like what people laugh at in Ireland is not what they laugh at in England. And then when you're in Holland, it's different than Belgium. And then you're in Paris and it's different collections of people. Like when you go to a party, sometimes it'd be a great party because it's a great collection of people. And then sometimes you go to a party and it sucks because it wasn't a good collection of people. And
Right.
that's how comedy is. Like every night of the week, sometimes it's just not a good collection of people.
Yeah.
And then other times, to be able to go to different, if you just appeal to one kind of people, like, you know,
It's gonna be harder to find those
how
fans. Yeah.
talented are you?
Right.
Um,
Yeah, no, I love California because I feel like you have all 50 states in this one state. San Francisco, you got a certain people. Oakland, it's a mix of people, and it's very it can be challenging, but I think it's very good to learn how to get those multiple diverse people. And then you go out to the valley like Modesto, You know, of Reno up to Tahoe, and it's like Trumpers and very right wing. Go by Bakersfield, you're driving in, it says like "fuck Gavin Newsom, kill Pelosi." I mean, you're going in, you're like, all right, I'm gonna be able to joke around like it's the '90s again. They're gonna want to hear those kind of jokes, you know. So I do like that about California, that we do get a mix of people here.
I think I've traveled the world, and I think nowhere is better than California.
Well, that makes me feel better about paying these taxes.
I think it's worth the high taxes and the high rent to live here because it
Yeah.
keeps a lot of people out.
It's a good way to look at it.
So you should pay your taxes with extreme zeal.
Zeal is what? Being proud?
Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Let's-
I think Tom is searching for the definition here.
Zeal, eagerness, and ardent interest in pursuit of something. Fervor.
There we go. Word of the day, folks.
Word of the day. Right
Hell
there.
yeah. You don't have a time you have to be out of here, do you?
Now I'm finished. We got
You got a couple minutes?
Yeah.
All right. So you go to London.
Amsterdam.
Well, no, before Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah,
London,
yeah, London.
London opened up everything, and then you go to Amsterdam. How long are you at Amsterdam before you get the talk show?
2 years. But I was traveling around Europe, and then I would still come back to the States and do, some of my favorite clubs I try to do regularly. Still, San Francisco Punchline, Minneapolis Acme. So I was traveling constantly, and I was partying like a fiend. And the woman that I had moved to Amsterdam for, she wanted to settle down and have kids, and I wasn't ready yet. I was kind of a wild man, so she broke up with me. And I was just about to move back to the United States when these people from this Dutch television network saw me, and they were looking for an American to host a late night talk show, and I got the job.
They
So
saw you at a show.
they held a audition at
Oh, okay.
Tumler, which is one of the best clubs in Amsterdam. A great name for a comedy club. Tumler is a Jewish Yiddish word for traveling merrymaker,
Oh.
uh, which is what we are. We're traveling merrymakers.
Right, right.
So it was like they had like 10 comedians. Like it was like a couple of Americans, mostly English comedians. I think a couple of Irish and Australian dudes. And I had the funniest set that night, but also I had just returned from doing shows in Hong Kong, and I had a tailored suit on. Uh,
Mhm.
a lot of the other comedians looked like they were dressed to go cut the grass.
I got you.
So I had the best set, but also I think I looked
The part. You look the part.
like you know a successful dude.
Other than the Steve-O showing his dong live on television, what else crazy? Is there something else crazy that ever happened when you were hosting that show?
Well, the best part was I was a foreigner experiencing Dutch culture. So everything about Dutch society was explained to me. So I got to do all these things that like even Dutch people would never get to do. Like every episode I would make a 5-minute film where I would experience something of Dutch culture. Like I spent a day with a Dutch farmer. I helped him out. I walked into an electric fence and got electrocuted. He said, "Look out for the fence," in Dutch, but I don't speak Dutch. Uh,
That hurt? Did that hurt?
it was an eye opener. It was definitely a pot of coffee in an instant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's why you don't see like cows trying to jump them. That's for sure. I spent a day. I was given a tour of the gay nightlife scene of Amsterdam by the guy who was in charge of the gay parade there. I covered the prime minister debates with a press pass. Everything about Dutch culture was explained to me. It was really one of the best experiences of my life because I moved to Florida. I moved to San Francisco from Florida, and I had been playing the Southern circuits, and I've always been, a lefty and progressive, and uh, San Francisco was my utopia.
Mhm.
And in the '90s, God, especially, was so vibrant, and I found that Amsterdam was like San Francisco times 1,000,
Mm.
and as far as they're just very progressive in there. I mean, they've had uh, a right wing government for a few years, but by its nature, the Dutch have always been um, very progressive in their laws and mentality.
Did you ever take the mushrooms there? The
I did,
truffles?
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
how was that?
I did it. There was a great joke I used to do about doing mushrooms in Vondel Park, and kicked off my shoes and was running barefoot through the
Through the grass there.
yeah.
Um, red light district, cool. Did you
Yeah,
ever?
okay. I was given a tour of the red. I mean, it's in the center of the city. You got to walk through there um, to go. You just, it's there. It's not a big deal. I
Yeah.
was given a tour of the red light district by a former prostitute that does social work for the women, helps them pay their taxes, help them get health care. And then the whole, sex industry was explained to me. But, you'd be walking through there and you'd see like a Dutch, uh, maybe not elementary, maybe like a school field trip of like 12-year-olds. And they're walking to the red light district, and the teacher is explaining to the Dutch children the sex industry and that this is allowed and it's tolerated, but you probably don't want to end up a sex worker.
Yeah.
So they're just very open
I
about it.
like the openness over there. I know in England they have like, topless women in their newspapers.
Yeah.
And over here we're just so, you know, um, I don't even know what the word is. We're just so scared of,
Puritanical.
there you go.
That's the word you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it stems down from people that used to live here back in the 1700s, 1800s, but yeah, I'm actually struggling with it myself. My son's 10 years old. My wife keeps pushing me, have the birds and the bees talk, have the birds and the bees talk, and I haven't gotten the nerve to yet.
I'd wait till he was 12 or 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've heard horror stories with kids showing Pornhub on phones his age. I mean,
Yeah,
I
wow.
know he's being exposed to stuff.
Hmm.
You know what I
Okay.
mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kids are way more advanced than when you or me were kids. You
Yeah.
know,
True.
the first porn I saw, it was a magazine. It was a Playgirl, and it was just all dicks. My neighbor showed me it. He found it on the top of the refrigerator, and I was like, "This is the grossest thing. Porn is so gross. This is all penises. I've seen that before." And then I saw the real thing a couple years later. It's like, oh no, this is actually great.
My dad has had a subscription to Playboy magazine,
uh,
and I had two older brothers.
yeah.
So by the time it got to me, all the pages were stuck together, and I read the articles. Um, but no, it really was kind of to think how like uh, illicit it seemed back then. It was really pretty innocent. Uh,
Yeah,
women had bushes, they didn't have tattoos, and they never showed uh, vagina lips or
right.
it was pretty tame.
Well, yeah, Showtime, all the stuff on TV never showed any of that, and just slowly it progressed to now people are putting stuff in their ass and
The,
no,
the Emmanuel movies on Cinemax.
right.
Yeah, you just see a boob, and that was like the most thrilling thing in the world.
Right. I mean, you really don't need to see as much as we see now. I think we're just so desensitized to
Yeah,
all of it, you know. But yeah, it is interesting looking at other countries how their approach to sex, and it seems like it's a little more logical than our approach of being scared of it and freaking out, you know.
yeah. Well, I heard it said or read it somewhere. Americans are obsessed with sex, but terrified of the act of sex.
Hmm.
I don't
Maybe
know.
because we've made it so taboo.
But I mean, that was, I read or heard that like 20 years ago. So,
Right. Well, I think they kind of like it now. OnlyFans. It
yeah.
is. Yeah, it's really weird. People you know, and they're there. Here's my clip to my OnlyFans. I'm like, I don't want to see you naked. You're my cousin. You know.
Oh, hilarious.
Yeah. So it's really weird. But Amsterdam, you've been all over the place. Is there a one place you want to perform that you haven't?
I have performed on every continent except for Antarctica. So, if it was possible, I'd love to do a show in Antarctica.
Oh, I'm sure. Aren't there scientists? Aren't there people?
Yeah, penguin scientists or something. There's got to,
Yeah, there's people there that would probably love comedy. They're so bored,
yeah.
and alone. So
Well,
you've done Palestine?
that's I've done Palisreal.
Okay. Okay. Is that the term you're supposed to say?
Yeah, I did a tour in Israel, and you had to be really clean. And I
Mm.
took my 84-year-old super religious mother with me. So for her to see Jerusalem and walk to where Jesus walked was pretty important for her. So it was cool. We got to do that together.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's very cool. My mom still hasn't seen me perform comedy. She wants me to come up with a clean set. So hopefully, I can put that together before she dies. She's in her 60s, so I got some time.
Okay.
Um, any last advice for young comedians that you could share before I
Never
let you go?
stop experimenting, never stop evolving, and uh, the most important advice is don't become a bitter turd. You need to fight it as hard as you can. I mean, it's hard. Like even at my level, I turn on Instagram and there's a million comedians doing better than me. Oh my God, this guy's got a one man show on Broadway. Oh my God, this guy's got a new special. Oh my God, this guy's in a movie. So, you know, comparing yourselves to others robs you of your happiness. You need to focus on your own life and your own comedy and just I mean, it's a struggle. Things happen in your life when you don't feel funny. Remember after my dad and my sister died, it was a couple years before I felt happy again.
Were
So
you
it
still doing comedy during that time?
was, yeah.
Were you just like kind of phoning it in?
Well, I had like so much material I could fall back on, but and it felt good to put my brain on a shelf and work through this grief. But it wasn't my most creative period, and I think that's the when it's the hardest when you're a comedian is when your heart is broken, whether it's a relationship or loved ones have died. Life is long and a lot of shit happens to you, so you gotta your mental health and trying to stay um you know uh joyful enough to bring um, laughter to people. When I was a young comedian, because I had the long hair and I was young and sexy and um, I remember there was a lot of older comedians that were just dicks to me, or just were bitter turds because the business hadn't given them what they wanted. So a promise I made to myself when I was a young comedian was, no matter what, I don't want to end up a bitter old comedian. That you need to find joy in the act of doing it.
Mhm.
And that's why sometimes I'll go do open mics. I'll go do small clubs or whatever, just because it's fun. And I got into it because I loved it, and it was fun. And I didn't want to, work and have a boss and be yelled at, you know.
Yeah, well said. Really well
If
said.
you're making a living at it, especially, you should, you know, try and find joy in it, and remember that ultimately it's supposed to be a joyful act.
Right. It's supposed to be fun, right? Right on, Tom. Well, I appreciate you joining me on my podcast. I really enjoyed talking to you. And once again, go check out Tom. You got any dates coming up?
I'm going to Europe. I'll be back in San Francisco. I'm going to be at the Throckmorton Theater in Mill Valley, December. Hold on. What's that? Yeah, I go to Europe. I get back on the 7th, and I am in Mill Valley at the Throckmorton on December 12th. And then,
Okay. I'll come say what's up on the 12th. I've been trying to get in on that room, and I know the bartender, he said he put in a good word for me. But even if I'm not can't get on the show, I'll come say what's up, meet you in person, and
oh yeah, it's a great room. And then sometime next summer, I'll supposed to be going back to the Punchline in San Francisco.
hell
And
yeah.
yeah,
Hell yeah, Tom. Well, thank you once again, and have a great day.
thanks, man. Let me know if Clem Daniels End Zone is still in Oakland.
I doubt it, but I'll check with some of my brothers. Okay.
Yeah, Alex, it's really great talking to you, man. Thank you,
Yeah.
brother.
Thanks, man. All right.
Respect.
Later.